Wednesday, Jody's drugged by a couple of crooked cops.
I think we're in deep trouble.
And Colt will go to the top of the world to save her because he's the fall guy. Wednesday.
One of my favorite shows from the early 80s is The Fall Guy. This is the show where Lee Majors stars as a Hollywood stuntman who also moonlights as a bounty hunter to make ends meet. I love this show for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, because it had the $6 million man in it. And I'll be darned if Mr. Majors didn't really seem to have a great sense of humor about his role as Colt Seavers. Of course, the other reason was the supporting cast, and if we're to get more specific, a certain young lady by the name of Heather. But more on that later. First, I want to talk about this guy. His name is David Somerville, and he had a huge hand in the creation of The Fall Guy. It's going to take a moment, but if you bear with me, we'll get there. First, you need to know that Dave Somerville was part of a vocal group called the Diamonds. He's the handsome chap that's second from the right. They had a few hits in the 60s, their biggest hits being Little Darlin' and The Stroll. Also, around the same time, everyone's favorite TV producer, Mr. Glen A. Larson, was producing something very different. He was singing in a vocal group of his own called the Four Preps. Mr. Larson is also pictured second from the right. At some point, Glen leaves the Four Preps and David Somerville joins. I don't believe that they were ever in the group at the same time, but clearly there was a connection which allowed them to form a friendship that would yield a song that I think transcends anything that either group produced on their own. So here's what happened. At some point in early 1980, right around there, Dave and Glen were vacationing together. I believe they were in one of Larson's homes. If I remember right, it was the one in Hawaii. And Somerville was griping about this great song that he had written for a TV program that wasn't going to end up getting made. When Larson heard the song, which was a rough version of the Unknown Stuntman, it got him thinking about an idea that he had been playing with that ended up morphing into The Fall Guy. After some further brainstorming with Larson, Somerville tweaked the song a bit, and Glen got to work on writing a pilot script. And before you can say I've been seen with Farrah, Glen Larson and ABC had a hit program on their hands that ran for 5 seasons. Speaking of Farrah, much like her appearance in The $6 Million Man, she appeared in the Fall Guy pilot. However, this was at the exact same time that things weren't going so well for Lee and Farrah. So when the show was greenlit to become a series, the role of Jody Banks was played by the extremely talented, maybe even more so than Farrah, Heather Thomas. And like I said earlier, I was a big fan of Ms. Thomas's work on the show. And I was not alone. Ms. Thomas became a very popular character on the show, especially with the demographic of young men between the ages of 12 and 18. Between Ms. Thomas and the other Heather that was on T.J. Hooker, it was truly a golden era of television.
Look, Garth, it's Heather Locklear. And she's signaling to us. There is a God.
Heather be thy name.
In fact, when I think about the reign of the Heathers during the early 80s, I usually don't even think to include Ms. Menzies, but she was there as well, in episodes of Vegas and T.J. Hooker. However, as much as I'd like to talk about the Heathers some more, this particular video is not about them. I'll save that topic for another day. We really need to be talking about this guy, Dave Somerville, and how his little song, so forgotten, so unappreciated, suddenly became the inspiration for one of my favorite shows, The Fall Guy. By the way, I believe the song, The Unknown Stuntman, sung by Lee Majors himself, was a big hit over in Germany. Not so much over here in the States, but I'll say this for the German people. They are a pretty good judge of talent. Just ask David Hasselhoff. One last thing, those of you who are Star Trek fans and think that Mr. Somerville looks kind of familiar, well, you're not imagining things. You see, David studied acting with one Mr. Leonard Nimoy and adopted the stage name of David Troy. And Mr. Troy ended up getting a gig on Trek in an episode titled The Conscience of the King.
Talk to me.
Larry Matson here. Is that you, Riley? What's up?
Not me. I am down in the engineering room.
Now, you've been a bad boy.
Maybe so. Whatever I've done, they're sure keeping it a secret from me. Hey, is that a horror playing? Now let me talk to her.
I think his heart is sore.
Always looking for new ways to connect with audiences, in 2005 Somerville released his first children's album titled The Cosmic Adventures of Diamond Dave. It contained many original songs and characters and received critical acclaim in both the United States and Canada. A few years later, Somerville was able to see a passion project of his come to life, a musical stage show titled On the 1957 Rock and Roll Greyhound Bus, which was based on rock and roll's first major tour. In it, he told road stories and sang songs of such pioneer giants as Buddy Holly, Fats Domino, the Everly Brothers, and Chuck Berry. In 2015, Somerville died of pancreatic cancer at the age of 81. While he was never truly a household name, he was a member of the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, the Doo-Wop Music Hall of Fame, the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, and the Doo-Wop Hall of Fame in America, as well as the Rockabilly Hall of Fame. Just a few moments ago I said Dave never really became a household name, and while true, I hope that no one takes that comment as me discounting his achievements. Truthfully, if you think about it, most of us have been impacted by this man's work. Whether we're talking about the genesis of the Fall Guy, or we go back a little further and reminisce about the Diamonds' classic hits like Little Darling and Why Do Fools Fall in Love, the late, great Dave Somerville meaningfully connected with all of us in one way or another. So that's it. Here's a still image from a YouTube clip that's out there of Dave Somerville singing the full version, the German version of the Unknown Stuntman with all of the lyrics. It's great. You should definitely look it up. Easy to find. But what do you think? Were you a fan of the Fall Guy, and did you love the theme song as much as I did? Share your memories in the comments section. While you're at it, I'd love a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I would be honored if you would check out my YouTube channel. I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.